Hello and welcome to Secrets of Organ Playing podcast. We are your hosts, Vidas Pinkevičius
and Aušra Pinkevičienė.
We've been mastering secrets of organ playing for more than 20 years and sharing them on this blog since 2011.
On this show, which we create from our home in Vilnius, Lithuania, we strive to help you grow in every area of organ playing, including practice, technique, repertoire, sight reading, hymn playing, improvisation, composition, music theory, harmony, and many others.
Our hope is to help you become a complete musician, or what we call as total organist, a program which we have created to help you reach your dreams faster than you would do on your own.
If you are new here, we invite you to subscribe to receive free updates of this blog at organduo.lt. By subscribing, you will also receive free video how to master any organ composition and 10-day organ playing mini course.
And now let's go to the podcast for today. Thank you so much, Dylan, for joining in this conversation. I'm really delighted that you can talk to me about your organ journey. I'm really interested to know, those things that are very important for our global audience, for 89 countries listening in, and not only today, but in the future as well. So thank you so much, Dylan, and welcome to the show.
Oh no, thank you for giving me this opportunity. I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Wonderful. How about starting with the question that it's really interesting to hear about? How did you first fell in love with the organ? Can you share the story with us?
Yes, of course. So I was a chorister at the Liverpool Metropolitan Cathedral under the direction of Timothy Noon. The organist at the time was Richard Lay. Absolutely phenomenal organist, incredible improviser as well. And I think it was only during sort of my latter years of being a chorister that I really realized the power and everything the organ sort of brings to the liturgy. It really was incredible. And it was a shame that I only realized that towards the end of my choristership. But after that, I was completely taken with the instrument. And I just wanted to take that further, that love of the organ further, which was really nice. But yeah, it was during when I was a chorister.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Dylan, what fascinated you about the organ at the beginning?
I think yes, yeah. It was originally it was simply first of all the grandeur. I mean, I don't know if you've been in the Liverpool Metropolitan Cathedral, but the acoustic is vast, absolutely vast. It just echoes around the cathedral, being simply because the building itself is circular. It was absolutely amazing when I really realised it. So the acoustic and sort of the depth of the organ brought in recitals, but also in services, that was incredible. But also the sounds of the organ. You know, you've got anything from, you know, an 8-foot diapason to, you know, a large tuba or the trumpet militaire. It's, you know, there are some fantastic colours, and it sort of made me think, you know, gosh, I'd love to play some music using those stops, those instruments. And yeah, I think that really sort of gave me sort of the fire to sort of take that love further.
Right. Very interesting to hear about that. Do you remember your first piece that you played on the organ? And what was the most difficult thing about it for you?
I think it was, oh gosh, let me think. I think I was sort of into arrangements of pieces back then, because I think it was almost a little bit of a stepping stone for me to sort of get into the organ. So sort of looking at, you know, maybe orchestral pieces or chamber music, which I knew, and then translating that sort of to the organ. So probably sort of the Rondo by Purcell was probably, I think, one of my first pieces. And one of the sort of technical challenges when I was a kid was certainly the pedals. I think that is especially when you start learning the organ, that is certainly something which you know is quite different to playing the piano. I realized there are a lot more things which are quite different, both in technique and other things as well. But yeah, no, it was a piece of Purcell, and that was yeah, it was fun, really fun. Yeah.
Of course, organ journey never starts alone. You always have supporters, mentors, right?
Of
Teachers.
course.
What would you want to mention today? What people have helped you along on your organ journey? How did you meet them? And of course, what have you learned from them?
Of course. So I guess when I was a chorister and sort of junior organ scholar at the Met, I think I'd definitely like to sort of mention the organist at the Liverpool Metropolitan Cathedral. So that was Richard Lay, because he really inspired me to take up the organ. And the colours he got out of that instrument were absolutely fantastic. So he really sort of inspired me to take that further. I'd then probably say James Luxton, who's currently the assistant director at Liverpool Metropolitan Cathedral. When I was junior organ scholar, he provided so much support and gave me a couple of playing opportunities, which was brilliant, and it really gave me the opportunity to sort of almost give me some, basically just give me some performance opportunities, which really helped my confidence.
Yes.
Later, I was then sponsored by the Liverpool Organist Association. This is something I'll definitely talk about later, but they were very, very kind and sponsored some of my lessons when I was growing up. So they were very, very kind doing that, and I don't think I'd be taking the organ so seriously if it wasn't for them sponsoring me at such a young age. And then I'd say after that, I'd like to mention some of my tutors who I've met during my time at the Royal Birmingham Conservatoire studying organ. One of those people would be someone who you've interviewed, and it's Daniel Moult.
Yes, wonderful.
Daniel, yeah, absolutely fantastic. Daniel is an absolutely incredible organist, but also he's a fantastic mentor. He has done so much for the department, but also I think at a few times given me the either the motivation or given me certain things to look at, which has really helped my development. And he's an absolutely fantastic head of department and is doing absolute wonders. Also, you've interviewed Daniel about his recent DVD,
yes,
which is absolutely, I presume you've watched it, but it's absolutely fantastic. It's really, really gripping. Just to see all those organs going from Tudor times to the present. And covering so much repertoire as well in those DVDs, it's absolutely fantastic. He's an absolute role model for the organ. I'd also like to mention Henry Fairs. Henry Fairs was the head of department when I arrived in my first year, but is the associate head now. But he is an absolutely phenomenal player. He's really, really inspired me. The repertoire he goes through, but also his playing style is just exquisite, absolutely exquisite, and he's very supportive, and he's a fantastic tutor. And then I'd probably like to mention Professor David Saint. David Saint he was head of organ at the Conservatoire when it was then Birmingham Conservatoire. And then during his last few years at the Conservatoire, he became principal. And then later passed on this baton to the cellist Julian Lloyd Webber. But he really had a massive influence in the conservatoire. But also, David is my boss. He is director of music at St. Chad's Cathedral, Birmingham, and he's been at the cathedral since 1978, which is incredible. He's absolutely lovely to work for. I think he's really encouraged me to really look at my liturgical playing with a really fine-tooth comb and sort of go through it and really refine it, and he's succeeded. But David's also been part of some massive large organizations as well. I mean, for example, he was president of the ISM from 2018 to 2019, which is really the ISM, the Incorporated Society of Musicians, is something I'd encourage everyone to be a part of, to be part of a music society for so many reasons. But David has been part of that, which is fantastic. But also he's given me insight into technique as well, Alexander technique, which is I think one of those growing things which is really important for people who are taking their playing seriously, but also people who are starting up as well. I think technique is a massive thing which needs sort of highlighting. And then finally, I'd probably like to mention my other two colleagues at the cathedral, who are Nigel Morris, who is the assistant director of music, and John Pryor, who is our organist honoraire. The pair of them have so many skills. Nigel is a fantastic accompanist and a brilliant rep player, but also John Pryor is a fantastic liturgical player. He's an incredible improviser, and really brings something to the liturgy. And both of them have influenced me so much in how I play in services, but also just how I go about my job as organ scholar. So they've had a profound influence as well. But yes, I think I've covered everyone there, but I think that they're probably the most important people who've sort of really had a profound effect on my education, but also had a huge effect on me as an organist.
Yes, very interesting. You know, I came into contact with you through my good friend from Australia, James Flores.
Yes.
And I'd like to say hello to him through the internet, and you can say hello to him as well.
Yes, no. James is an absolutely brilliant player, and his passion for the organ is admirable. He's a real organ pioneer, and I think his recordings and just his whole brand, I was just so impressed when I saw all of his content and everything like that. So yeah, I think he's one of those pioneers for the organ in Australia. So it's nice to see that in another country as well.
Dylan, what advice would you give to a student who is trying to get better at playing the organ?
Sure. So I would probably say I'm sort of basing this on sort of what advice I would have liked to have been given when I was growing up. So I've sort of taken a little bit out of what I would have liked to have heard or known about. So first of all, I'd probably recommend getting organ shoes, either from Organ Master, which is a huge favourite with people, but also Freeds of London, which is a fairly new sort of maker of organ shoes. I recently bought a pair, and I find them incredibly comfortable and quite easy to play in. So I've got both pairs, which is quite nice. But it's simply because I think even from starting the organ, I think one of the main things students have to concentrate on is pedal technique. I think pedal technique is a huge thing, and I think it does often get overlooked sometimes. And I think it's sort of, if you start it when you're trying to get better at playing the organ, I think you sort of set yourself up almost. I think you're doing yourself a massive favour. And then that sort of moves me on to obviously getting piano and organ lessons. However, bear in mind, there are separate techniques for playing both instruments. Certainly one of the things I had to train was because I started on the piano and then I moved to the organ. I had sort of not quite mobile elbows, but my elbows did move, but actually for the organ they should be a lot more controlled. So I think if I knew that the technique was different when I was growing up, I wouldn't have had to correct them. But yeah, just bear in mind the separate techniques for both instruments. Then I'd probably say apply to a local organist association. So I've been part of two. So I've been part of the Liverpool Organist Association, with associations with Willis Organ Builders, the Liverpool Anglican Cathedral, the Liverpool Metropolitan Cathedral, but also when I've been in Birmingham for my degree at the Conservatoire, I've been part of the Birmingham Organist Association as well. And I mentioned before that the Liverpool Organist Association really kindly sponsored me when I was growing up and wanted to take the organ seriously. They provided financial support when I wanted organ lessons. So I think if anyone wants to get better at playing the organ and need that sort of help, I definitely think about applying to an organist association, because they are very keen to take on new students and get people interested into the organ. So in a way, they're pioneers for their instrument, which I think is a fantastic thing. And then moving on, I'd probably become a member of the RCO, the Royal College of Organists. I know that the RCO, if you become a member, you get reduced rates for the Incorporated Society of Musicians, which is, again, a fantastic sort of deal you get, which I think lots of people should take up. But I'd probably say definitely become a member of the RCO. They do tons of courses. They've got tons of resources, lots of keyboard skills and stuff like that, which I think are really, really useful. And it's only if you remember you get access to these amazing resources. So I definitely recommend that. I'd also maybe recommend either taking ABRSM exams, or maybe taking with the RCO the CRCO, just to get basically just a start, a qualification on the organ, for people who are just starting to get to grips with the organ. Further on from that, I'd probably say learn a mixed repertoire. This can be anything from Bach to Bird to Vierne to Mendelssohn. Find out your niche and what you like to play, and then hopefully that will give you the fire to learn more repertoire, either of that type or learn a mixed repertoire. But I definitely recommend have a variety of pieces.
Yes.
Then after that, I'd probably say, this might be slightly controversial, but I do think, I do believe that I think this might be a good thing. I wouldn't do any liturgical work until you're probably ready, before your technique and your coordination is together. Simply because if you sort of rush into playing for a church, I think there is sometimes the expectation that you automatically know what you're doing, and especially if you're learning the organ, sometimes that isn't always the case. So I think what I would do is I'd get my technique together, I'd get my coordination together, I'd get a repertoire together, and maybe it probably sounds quite boring, but I'd practice playing some hymns or some parts of a mass or a service. And once I'm completely comfortable with that, I'd probably be like, right, I think I'll consider doing some liturgical work. But I think making sure the groundwork, setting yourself up, making sure the groundwork is faultless before going on and doing some liturgical work, I think that's quite important. Because I don't think I don't think you should rush your development into playing the organ. The organ's a difficult instrument, and I think you need to get to grips with everything before you take that forward into another field. Be happy with yourself before you're happy to take this to a congregation.
Yes. Dylan,
Yes.
what is a bad organ playing advice you heard recently?
Well, and I think due to my education at the Conservatoire the past 4 years, all the advice I've been given, I'm glad to say, has been absolutely fantastic. It's been faultless. So I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I don't think I've heard any bad organ playing advice.
Uh-huh. Yes, that's very good for you, right? Because people sometimes get mixed up with different styles, teaching styles, methodologies, things like that.
Yes.
Hmm.
Mm.
Good. What about things that help you find motivation? Why do you keep practicing even today after all these years?
So I think, firstly, repertoire. I mean, my repertoire really motivates me. I mean, I'm learning on some fantastic repertoire. Some I'll probably cover with you later. But I think simply if the repertoire is really interesting, or I find it really interesting, it sort of gives me the motivation to sort of sit down and was like, oh, I'd really like to complete this section or these couple of bars even. It can be the progress can vary, but I'd say the type of repertoire definitely gives me motivation.
Mm-hmm.
I'd,
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably say my work. So if I've got recitals a few months in advance, that would motivate me, even though it's probably to some people it's ages away. But I'd ideally want pieces to sort of be completed a couple of months before I air them. So I think that would probably give me some motivation.
And that is
Also,
a good advice for people in general, right? To find deadlines
yeah,
and
yeah,
things like public performances.
yeah. I mean, the reason why I said that was I think what I try to do is at least get comfortable with a piece so I know it quite well. Sometimes I'll do them a little bit from memory, but as long as I know the piece quite well, if I'm changing pistons, or if I'm using various things on the organ, I'd like to be completely comfortable with them at least a couple of months before. Then almost give it a sort of a mature period, where you leave it for a little bit, let it mature, then come back to it, and then hopefully, if all progresses went well and you've done everything by the book, it should be great when you play it for a recital.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah, it's very important to get the foundation going and
Yes.
not wander around aimlessly.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And by the way, what is your process of learning a new organ piece, right?
Yeah, no, so I tend to practice things in sections. So I sort of take apart a piece, so break it in, I don't know how many pieces, and I practice in sections. So I have a little section at the start, I have a little section in the middle, and I have a little section at the end. So I practice these really, really slowly, sometimes against a metronome, but I wouldn't recommend using a metronome all the time. Sort of get used to the tempo, or do a tempo check. So if you're not there, just bear in mind where you're going to, where you're ending up. But after I've reached that, I'd probably turn off the metronome, because you don't want it to interfere with your musicality. But at the same time, you want to make sure you're keeping to the tempo. And then I sort of do this just so I can get a feel for the style of the piece. You're at the start, you're at the end, and you're at the middle. You're either covering the same style of the piece or covering sometimes multiple styles in a piece. So in a sense, you get a feel for the overall architecture of a piece of music, which I think is quite useful, because sometimes I know with big pieces in the past, I didn't think they were going to end. So I think it's nice to see that there is an end. There is an end to a piece, and it is doable. And I think in a way that gives me a little bit of motivation. I've started at the start, and then I've got to work till the middle, and then I've started at the middle, and I've got to work to the end. There are these bite-sized chunks, almost. Well, I'd say they give me motivation to complete these pieces. So yeah, I think that's what I'd recommend.
Yes, very good advice, actually. If you could go back in time, Dylan, when you first started playing the organ, would you do something different?
That's a very good question. I think I would probably get more of a repertoire. I think I'd also invest in some organ master shoes. I think it's because I mean, when I was growing up, I didn't know there were, specialist shoes to play the organ, but actually they are really, really important, especially to technique. So I think that would have been brilliant for my pedal technique, but also just bearing in mind the different techniques from piano and organ, making sure they are different, and there are two different playing styles, and two different techniques. So I think I'd probably bear them in mind as well. But yes, I think that's probably about it.
Wonderful. Dylan, could you tell us, why do you still continue practice the organ? What would you like to accomplish in the future, right? What are your dreams?
Sure. So I think I continue to practice the organ simply because I think sort of my dream in the future is to go into cathedral music. It's sort of what's really been on my mind since I was a chorister. It's really, really fired me up to take this instrument seriously, is almost taking different aspects of cathedral music seriously. So the fact that I take my organ playing seriously translates into taking the accompaniment of choirs or ensembles quite seriously. It makes me take conducting seriously, whether that be in front of cathedral choirs or outreach projects. I mean, I've been involved in a couple of outreach projects, whether that be with adults, children, schools, but also, I guess, with my major project at the moment, that's really fired me up and really sort of took my organ playing to the next level. I think the motivation to practice the organ for my major project, which is in a month's time. It's at St. Chad's Cathedral. I don't know if you came across the work Membra Nostri by Buxtehude. Absolutely glorious work.
Yes.
And for my major project, I've decided to pair it up with some organ works by Buxtehude, the Preludium in G minor, 149, but also Herr Christe einige Gottes Sohn, 191 and 192. So I've paired that with the cantata to sort of almost give it, almost a structure to the concert, and to make sure that it wasn't just focused on the cantata. It was, there were other things to draw people to the project. But I think that's I think that is really sort of fires me up to take I guess to really continue practicing the organ, the motivation to really make sure my final major project at the Conservatoire to be absolutely stellar. And Buxtehude is one of my favorite composers, absolute favorite composers. So I'm really, really looking forward to performing that concert.
And what is the most difficult thing about this project for you?
I think in terms of, St. Chad's Cathedral, which is the flagship of the Walker organ builder, it's an absolutely glorious instrument. However, the mechanical action is quite heavy. So I think with some of the solo repertoire, so for example, the Preludium in G minor, doing that opening run on a real heavy mechanical action and doing it effectively, making sure the pipes really speak, I think that will be quite tricky, and just making sure I'm relaxed at that instrument. But I do think that the technical issues have been overcome, and I think all of us are developing over time. So no one is perfect, but it's sort of to keep an open mind about things, I think, is important.
And really interesting project, right? I wish you really good luck with
Thank you.
research and performance. It's really fun. A
Thank
great
you.
composer that Johann Sebastian Bach learned from, and it's very relevant for today's world as well.
Yes, absolutely.
So I wish you good luck, and of course,
Thank you.
share before we end this conversation, how can our listeners connect with you online?
So I have, I'm really excited to say that I have three main things to sort of well, how I get my content out there. I'm quite keen to I mean, I'm a growing artist, so I'd like people to see that I'm developing all the time, and they almost get to see a little snippet of what I do on either a day-to-day basis or when I'm preparing for a concert or doing a concert. So first of all, Instagram, I think, is a great social media resource. You can post small snippets of things, which I do actually quite a lot, which it really, I mean, I use Instagram simply to almost contact the younger generation, because I know Instagram is quite a thing with the younger generation. So I tend to post a lot of stuff up there to get people interested and hopefully inspire people to take music seriously, whether that be with the organ or just in their own instrument. So Instagram at Dylan McCaig Music is where I post a lot of my content. And then moving on, my Facebook page, Dylan McCaig Musician, is where I post or share some of upcoming concerts or solo repertoire I'm looking at, or my own major project. Mm-hmm. So Facebook is really useful as well. And currently I have a new website in development which should be running very, very soon. And that's dylanmccaigmusic.co.uk. And hopefully that will have everything I want on there, from teaching to upcoming concerts to anything from a bio and snippets of what I do on a day-to-day basis.
Wonderful, wonderful, Dylan. If you could give a final advice for our listeners, what would it be?
I would probably say find some repertoire you absolutely love or have wanted to learn. Look at it and try and put your own stamp on it. Look at it in a methodical way, just like I've been looking at with some of my pieces, from the start, the middle, and the end. Put them in sections. And even if the piece seems a little bit difficult, give it time. Give it time, and keep going, doing this technique, and you will find that eventually it will glue together, and you'll have something which you can hopefully share to the masses, either in congregations or in a concert. But give it that time to mature. But yes, I think never forget what's really inspired you to take up the organ and to take it seriously. I think that's really important.
Mm-hmm. Great advice, Dylan. Thank you so much. And I will look forward to your next musical adventures. So let me know how it goes, and really have fun playing and researching Buxtehude.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. It's been fantastic.
This blog is supported by Total Organist, the most comprehensive organ training program online, where you will find courses for every area of organ playing, including technique, practice, sight reading, repertoire playing, hymn playing, improvisation, composition, music theory and harmony, with hundreds of scores and thousands of exercises. Here is what some of the students are saying.
Hugh writes, "The sight reading course has helped me tremendously. Thank you very much for your SS courses and all your help."
Robert writes, "I found the fingerings, registration ideas and general comments to be excellent."
John writes, "I have found your download very helpful. It was really excellent. I have watched some of your teaching videos, and when I read your instructions, I tried to imagine you were teaching me. You may feel disappointed that I am 2-3 days behind, but I am a slow learner, and I have committed to taking the time to get it right, as you say. But the other night my wife commented that she had never heard me play such a detailed melody in the left hand so well. My left hand is generally poor.
Robert writes, "It has been a great pleasure in my life of having discovered your courses and material as well as the YouTube work of recordings. You have a calm and pleasant way of teaching."
Ron writes, "Hi Vidas and Ausra, thank you guys. What a wonderful response to my email note to you. You've got me right, and I feel you understand my level of playing. Yes, at home, and lucky that I have an organ for that reason. I am paying attention to this, and I am going to try this haha no longer secret model. Yes, and I love Cesar Frank too. What is very nice about your blog podcast is that Ausra and Vidas are like a Socratic dialogue, and by bouncing things off of each other, so much more information comes out and is expressed. Your comments contain a wealth of information and understanding. I really appreciate this. It is very inspiring and will keep us moving forward."
Would you like to receive the same or even better results that our students are getting? If so, join them at organduo.lt/total-organist. And of course, you will get the first month free too. You can cancel anytime.
Also, if you haven't yet subscribed to receive free updates of this blog, make sure you do that at organduo.lt. By subscribing, you will also receive free video, how to master any organ composition, and 10-day organ playing mini course.
This was Vidas.
And Ausra from Secrets of Organ Playing.
And remember, when you practice,
Miracles happen.